In 1831, imagine yourself as a silk merchant residing on the eastern bank of the Tigris River. The greatest threat to your fortune was neither desert bandits nor draconian tax policies. That threat came from the river itself. That spring, the Tigris burst its banks. Floodwaters surged into the Kark district, sweeping mud and the carcasses of livestock through every alleyway. Almost simultaneously, a cholera epidemic broke out. Thousands of bodies had to be carried out of the city each day. The markets fell silent. From a bustling metropolis of 150,000 residents, Baghdad was reduced to a mere 20,000 survivors clinging to the ruins. Stripped of 85% of its population, an ordinary city would have collapsed. But Baghdad was different. Its geographical position was simply too vital to be abandoned. For nearly 4 centuries, from the raising of the Ottoman flag in 1534 to the arrival of British troops in 1917, Baghdad remained at the epicenter of imperial rivalries. How did a devastated urban center manage to rise from the ashes and become a geopolitical chessboard? How did invisible land laws restructure the social fabric of Mesopotamia? Today we will wander through the brick-paved alleys of Al-Mutanabi Street to uncover the survival of Baghdad. Let us begin. By the early 16th century, Baghdad, the former capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, had been reduced to a mere buffer zone. It found itself trapped between the Sunni Ottoman Empire and the Shia Safavid dynasty of Persia. In December 1534, the tide turned. As 70,000 Ottoman troops descended from the north, the Safavid forces retreated. The residents of Baghdad braced themselves for a religious purge, anticipating the sectarian conflict between the Sunni Ottomans and the Shia Safavids. Yet Suleiman the Magnificent entered the city not with drawn swords, but with peace and architectural blueprints. He financed the restoration of both Sunni mosques and Shia shrines. This calculated political decision successfully pacified the populace. The true turning point, however, lay in the unification of the Tigris and Euphrates river basin. Prior to 1534, this vital waterway had been fragmented. Extortionate tariffs and rampant piracy had paralyzed trade. Once the Ottomans secured control over the entire stretch from the Anatolian mountains down to the Persian Gulf, a maritime highway was effectively opened. The economic impact was immediate. Wheat timber and metals from the upper reaches flowed into the arid lower plains. The markets sprang back to life. Caravanserais emerged to accommodate Jewish, Persian, and Indian merchants. By seamlessly connecting the river, Baghdad transformed itself into an international transit hub. It was this infrastructural foundation that sustained the heartbeat of the city for centuries to come. Entering the 18th century as the administrative apparatus in Istanbul grew increasingly cumbersome, Ottoman governors began employing Mamluks, enslaved men from the Caucasus who were purchased, converted to Islam, and subjected to rigorous military training. By 1704, this vanguard had grown powerful enough to allow the pashas to govern Baghdad as a semi-autonomous province. They levied their own taxes, raised independent armies, and maintained regional stability. Consequently, the city's population steadily recovered, reaching the 200,000 mark. Yet the economic structure of this era harbored a severe legal flaw: the lack of guaranteed property rights. One's accumulated wealth depended entirely upon the favor of the ruling class. Should a pasha fall from grace, his assets would be subject to immediate confiscation. Confronted with such risks, Rather than investing capital into irrigation systems or manufacturing workshops, the elite opted to secretly hoard gold. They also converted their real estate into waqfs, religious charitable endowments, shielding them from state expropriation. Consequently, the economy suffered a chronic shortage of long-term investment capital. It functioned smoothly on the surface, but utterly lacked the foundational elements required for industrialization. This model met its demise in 1831. After the final Pasha refused to dispatch troops to assist the central government, the historic convergence of flood and cholera wiped out the majority of both the civilian population and the garrisoned army. This catastrophe effectively closed the chapter on 127 years of Mamluk rule. Returning to the direct control of Istanbul, Baghdad began to experience the Tanzimat, a sweeping series of reforms designed to modernize the Ottoman administrative apparatus. Modern secular schools, post offices, and telegraph lines emerged across the city. Simultaneously, Turkish bureaucrats arrived to displace the native Arab aristocracy. They brought with them a highly centralized administrative system and mandatory military conscription, a policy deeply feared by the local populace. The most profound and lasting impact of this era stemmed from the Land Code of 1858. Enforced in Baghdad beginning in 1869, its initial objective was straightforward: to grant agricultural deeds to settle nomadic tribes, thereby facilitating tax collection and boosting agricultural output. However, when implemented on the ground, the policy backfired spectacularly. The peasantry feared that registering their names on the land deeds would inevitably lead to military conscription and heavy taxation. To exploit a loophole in the system, they entrusted their sheikhs, the tribal leaders, to legally register the entirety of the village lands under their own names. As a result, the sheikhs transitioned from traditional community leaders into absentee titular landlords. They relocated to opulent mansions in Baghdad, leaving the peasants as mere sharecroppers on the very land they once held in common. While the nomadic population plummeted from 33% to roughly 15%, the reform failed to deliver prosperity. Instead, it inadvertently engineered a profound class divide, leaving social fractures that would echo well into the 20th century. By the late 19th century, technology began to dramatically reshape the region. The Tigris was no longer the exclusive domain of traditional coracles and hide rafts. British steamboats arrived swiftly, monopolizing the transport of both freight and passengers. Ashore, the German Empire commenced construction of the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. While its primary objective was resource extraction, the project also established a military logistical route that directly threatened British hegemony over India. Infrastructure had effectively become the primary battleground leading up to the First World War. Within the city walls, ancient bazaars like Al-Shorja maintained their relentless commercial rhythm. Yet urban expansion had given rise to a crucial cultural space that we continue to enjoy today, the coffee house. At establishments like the Shabandar Cafe on Al-Mutanabi Street, Islamic codes were strictly observed. There was no gambling and no alcohol, only black tea and shisha. This contemplative atmosphere transformed these venues into gathering hubs for the Effendiya, the newly emerged intellectual class. They congregated here to read newspapers, exchange international intelligence, and debate political liberties. It was within these very walls that the seeds of Arab nationalism began to germinate. They questioned the legitimacy of Ottoman rule and cultivated a profound sense of indigenous self-determination. The decision to forge an alliance with Germany during the First World War ultimately sealed the fate of the Ottomans in the region. Driven by the strategic need to secure oil reserves, the British deployed forces into Basra. Following a grueling campaign in March 1917, General Maud marched 50,000 British troops into Baghdad. On March 11th, the retreating Ottoman army set fire to their riverside armories. 4 centuries of Ottoman dominion over Baghdad were effectively extinguished in a sea of flames. Days later, General Maud issued a formal proclamation to the citizens of Baghdad. He famously declared, "Our armies do not come into your cities and lands as conquerors or enemies, but as liberators." This precise messaging resonated deeply with a populace utterly exhausted by rampant inflation and the heavy burden of Ottoman conscription. However, these grand promises never materialized into actual self-determination. The territory of Iraq did not emerge as an independent nation. Instead, it was absorbed into the British mandate system. Its vast resources and political structures remained firmly under foreign administration. The glaring disparity between diplomatic rhetoric and the reality of colonial control sowed a deep, lingering cynicism across the region regarding Western interventionism. The 400-year history of Baghdad under Ottoman rule serves as a profound historical lesson. Any top-down reform that ignores the indigenous social fabric is bound to yield unpredictable and often disastrous consequences. Furthermore, foreign interventions driven by external interests will inevitably encounter resistance born from the very social fractures they themselves create. I am Robert Langdon from History Reconstruction. If this journey has provided you with valuable perspectives, please do not forget to hit the like button, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to the channel. I will see you in our next chapter of history.